And
Any
we
moment now.
should be live.
Let me refresh the browser.
Yeah, YouTube does not. Oh, just kidding.
Hey, here we are.
Boom.
There we are.
There you go. We're live.
I also had to refresh the browser.
Well, I gotta stop listening to us on loop because it'll drive me nuts.
Yeah. Oh God, that one day, remember when I couldn't figure out what it was? I was just hearing us talking forever and ever.
Oh goodness.
My God. All right, we're gonna wait a few minutes for people to trickle in. Looks like we already got quite a few people.
Let's go,
Angus, this is what happens when you actually post it ahead of time.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought doing things professionally would help?
Dude, crazy idea. I know.
One could only imagine.
That's good stuff. I don't have to tell any stories about delivering babies this time.
And also myself.
And me. All right. Yeah, let's jump right into it then. Boom. Don't see anybody in chat yet, but that's fine. Yeah, we got plenty of people watching. Let's go. Let's do it up.
How do you not see people in chat? Covetous Lemon's been talking. Stormhawk has been talking.
We
Medkit's
recognize
talking.
you, chat. Okay, just
Yeah,
because
Green
Mangus
Quick
is
Viking
here.
Jedi,
Stormhawk.
Yeah,
Hey, even
dude.
Jelly Knees is here.
Yeah.
Oh, boom. There we go.
Yeah,
This
man.
guy, dude.
I had to click the button.
What kind of streamer doesn't pay attention to his own chat, dude? Mangus
Streaming
the
is
streamer.
hard, dude. Streaming
Anyone
is hard.
over 30 viewers.
Sorry, guys. All right, cool. All right, we got chat up and running. We got the show going. Let's start it up. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to For the Minions, the weekly show where we talk about the Paragon remakes and Ethereal. This week, we really don't got that much to cover. We have very minor updates from pretty much everybody. So we are going to have a discussion topic, which we haven't done in a while. And the topic this week, we're going to talk about the pre-release strategy of these games. Like Fault went early access, Pred released an alpha and then went quiet for like a year. Overprime had like their peer-to-peer, which translated to the servers. Then they went down and brought back Netmarble. Ethereal has had a couple of pre-alpha tests. So we're going to talk about how that has affected their popularity currently, and if it was a good or a bad thing, because I think there's good and bad things to be said about all of that. And of course, chat, you are more than welcome to participate in these discussions. I am your host, the Mangoose. Joining me, as always, is the heartbreaker himself, Jelly Knees. How you doing, Jelly?
That's me, Mangoose. Breaking hearts. Breaking hearts, man. Absolutely. My Simpson chat, I'm sorry. But with us this week, we've also got the Viking Jedi, who's been here relatively consistently, I guess, if he has to be here. But we've also got Dapper Dice with us. But welcome, guys. Happy to have you both with us here. Dapper, give us a little bit of information about yourself, how you got started in Paragon, favorite characters, favorite roles, that kind of stuff.
Good morning, everybody. I am Dapper Dice. For those that don't know me, I'm actually really new to this whole, well, new at this point, quote unquote, the whole Parazombies thing, and actually the MOBA scene. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the Fault Partner panel that I've appeared on twice, but it was actually Overprime Closed Beta Test 1 back last year that actually got me into MOBAs.
Wow.
So not only
really?
did it get me, not only did it get me into MOBAs, that was also my first experience with the whole Paragon aspect thing. And even then, I only saw it as like hey, this was a cool game. I'm excited for this to come out. It wasn't until CBT2, back early this April, May-ish, that I actually started to put effort into learning about these games and learning about the communities. So I'm excited to be here. I'm a fresh face to most of this and trying to figure it all out as we go.
Love that.
That's going to be
Love that.
quite the interesting perspective. I love talking to people that didn't actually like play Paragon or anything. That's always fucking cool.
Oh yeah. I do my best to provide insight in ways that maybe not other people might.
So, this week, I think we're going to go just according to the list. We're going to go Overprime, Ethereal, Fault, Predecessor, and then we'll get into our topic for discussion. So,
Okay.
let me go ahead and switch the scene. I switched the scene to Overprime, and hopefully it worked. It did. Excellent.
I'm so proud of Mangoose, becoming a little
I'm
streamer.
getting good at this shit. I'm getting good at this shit. All right,
We're gonna get on my stream deck here next. That way he can like
There we
put
go.
all
Yeah,
effects
yeah.
across and all that. Oh, dude,
no,
it's a
thank you.
downhill slope from here.
All right.
What's up, chat? How you guys doing?
So Overprime this week, we had a Twin Blast video. They've been doing these sort of, like we've already said, very, very similar to the way Paragon did their initial reveals of Paragon. Just in the dark, sort of up close and personal views of each hero. And this time we had Twin Blast. The interesting thing though was it was their skin for Twin Blast. It wasn't like. We've seen that they've made adjustments to the base models of the heroes a lot of times, even if they didn't change their face or anything, they changed around their clothing a little bit. This was just a completely updated skin for Twin Blast, which prompted me to ask, is this going to be their base model Twin Blast? Because I know they love this Twin Blast skin. Dapper, what did you think of the Twin Blast little video?
The model showcase, I think, is a great way to show, if you run the game at best settings, this is what the game can look like. I mean, you're obviously not going to get that close of a detail of the model, but it's also, something unique to Overprime. So by doing both of those things, it definitely can subtly bring hype to a game that's soon to come. So I think it was a good, idea to show their own version of the model as well. Though I don't think that's going to be the base model, as it was a skin in the actual CBT. So it'd be interesting to have one character look that graphically good with all that detail, while every other character is at their base skin from what I know of the Paragon game.
Jelly, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fantastic as well. I don't think that it's the base skin, especially because the other videos that we've seen in this similar line, the only one that seems to be base completely has been the Muriel one, but even then she had a couple tweaks here and there. And it does throw me back to wonder if this is some kind of mastery skin stuff that they're showing off, that maybe they're going to transition this skin to be a mastery skin for Twin Blast, and the other ones could also be in that same vein. And someone pointed that out videos ago. I think it was on the week we had Murdoch as it. That is becoming slowly more and more of a possibility in my mind, because Murdoch being that iconic blue, right? Everybody that sees Murdoch goes like, oh yeah, the blue guy, his base skin, he's the blue police skin, right? But that one they showed was more of a gold. That to me is a weird thing to make his new base skin. So I don't think they're transitioning. I think they're trying to create either new skins or show off mastery skins throughout this whole process.
Okay. Viking Jedi, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think the guys touched on it pretty. Yeah, I agree with them. If it is going to be the new base skins, then it to me speaks to that the rest of the skin line is going to have to really step it up to set themselves apart from the base, which at this point I think Overprime is fully capable of doing, and maybe that's what they're investing in, is trying to really give the visual increase to this. I know that's a big part to what makes Overprime super interesting, is their visual effects and how flashy they make everything look and feel, and how they're really trying to separate themselves from Paragon while also still paying homage to the game that we all loved when it came out. So it would be interesting if this is the base skin and what that means for the other skins. Yeah, I have no idea, man. Because they have already, even with like the skins that they showed during the CVT, this last one, they were all already really good. Like, to me, the Sevarog skins were the most dynamic, the shoulders getting really big and all that stuff. But I am a huge fan of mastery skins. I said this about Fortnite too, like in their battle pass, how you could like earn your way up to showing off your skills or your abilities. And I think that in MOBAs, having that visual appeal, same thing in League of Legends. If you get to gold, you get a skin every, and each rank above that, you get a different type of that skin. So it's a really cool way to show off to the community. And I know they have that in Fault, that, hey, I'm good at this champion. You can tell just by looking at my skin. And I think that's always fun. So if these are that kind of progression system, super neat. If they're the base, then yeah, the rest of the skins are really going to need to be polished up to keep up with it, because it's really, really cool looking. And it also, I mean, the boring answer would be that they're just showing off and it has nothing to do with the skins at all. And that's
that very well could
totally
be.
Could be.
They love that skin. Like they did the 3D printed little model of it and they painted it and they gave that away as one of the prizes for winning their contest, like their marketing contest, where they had people post stuff like on YouTube Shorts and TikTok and stuff. Again,
cool.
Genius marketing ploy. But
Yep.
I think they just really like this Twin Blast skin. I think that might be Ranger's favorite hero too, or maybe Jon Snow, one of those two.
I think
No,
Ranger
Jon Snow's favorite hero is Chimera, apparently, because he just pops off.
And I also think Ranger prefers the Fae as their favorite champion.
Oh,
But
really?
you know,
Ah.
yeah, I believe so. But I mean, they definitely do like that skin because I think they also it's either for the Steam page or something. But I remember seeing that skin on like part of Steam's. You can see it on Steam, I think, at some point as like the thing you see behind Adele or whatever. So they definitely want people to see that skin is their original skin, and they put a lot of effort into it.
Hot take here. I don't really like the skin. To tell you the truth, I said it when it came out, and I'll say it right now. I love a lot of their skins. That one, Of course, I'm not really a Twin Blast guy, so.
I was
I mean,
gonna
that's
say
the
it doesn't.
wrong take. That's the wrong take. Not the hot
All
take.
right, guys,
just-
and
just
so
straight
as of right now,
wrong.
FTM is officially no longer Mangoose's show because he's got a bad take. Thank you very much. Which will now be run by other people. Thank you.
All right.
Oh yes, because For the Minions is always known for their good takes.
Oh,
Wow.
sick burn coming in.
Only
from
been in the
Dapper.
community for less than a year and already gets it.
All the time he needed to know. That's it.
Ah. Perfect
Very
fit.
quick assessment. Jesus.
Nice. All right, well, let's move on
The
from this
funny
Twin
thing-
Blast
so-
bit. I'll go ahead. What do you got to say, Jelly?
Listening to Viking talk about it, he was like, "Oh yeah, the Sevarog skins were the best skins," and in my head, I translated that to be Demorius skins, and then had to remember that they reverted the name, so now it's back to Sevarog.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Wait, my brain took a second to figure out who we were talking about."
It's harder with the ones that they completely changed, like Shimbi to Bora. Like, she was just
Mhm.
completely Bora in my head now.
Mhm.
Yep,
Now she's going back to
100%.
Shimbi.
And the difference between like obviously somebody that came in through Overprime, I had to learn the Overprime names first, then learn the Paragon names. So there are definitely times where I'll mention like, oh yeah, this Ulog build that I had. No wait, he's Narbash. That's what everyone defaults to.
Yeah.
I have to do that, and it's been easier considering Overprime's been gone long enough that with only Fault and Predecessor, prior to Overprime starting to get updates, with those two being the only ones that anyone talks about, again, until recently, it was easy to get the names down. And even during CBT, a lot of people that I knew did play Paragon. So I was trying to figure out both names, even during the closed beta tests.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Is now a bad time to announce that we're officially changing the Ethereal character names to be Paragon names?
Oh,
So
God.
Malaya is now Shinbi. Now we've got
Just shut up.
Oh,
Dante's
Malaya.
now Twin Blast.
Malaya is,
All right.
Malaya is Countess, 100%. Malaya is Countess.
Oh, you're right. You're right. There we go, Mangoose.
And yet they only took one thing from Overprime's names. Scott. One of the champions will be named Scott.
Oh, yeah. We gotta get Scott Steele somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's the only one I liked. All
That
right,
was the one everyone hated, though, sadly.
let's move on now to they updated their Trello this week. They added UI animation improvements, buff monster icon revamp, and training grounds detail improvement. Now, UI animation improvements. What Jelly, you being more in the know on this kind of stuff, what's a UI animation?
So it's the little things. So like for instance, when you get enough XP to level up, right? And the little animation comes up over your icon, your ability icons, that it's moving up or it's glowing or whatever it is, right? That's a UI animation. So they've just added something among those lines to their UI, which I think is fantastic. It's one of those things. Hey, look, can my camera stop?
Oh, there you go,
It's one of those
switching
things-
around.
It's one of those things that, like, being more involved in the development process, I notice more in games now. That I'm sitting there, I'm like, ooh, this little thing shines a little bit here. Like, I'm a big fan of those little teeny details now as I go through these games. So I'm really excited to see what they've done with that.
So it's pretty important for immersion, just overall.
I think so, yeah. And it also can be very helpful in terms of giving the players an idea of what they're supposed to be doing, right? So when you level up and you get that animation, it's usually like an up arrow icon of some kind that like is moving or whatever it is, right? That gives you the sense of like you're increasing something, you're moving it up, you're leveling it up, you're doing this thing all through animation without text and any of that kind of stuff. So it also helps make it really intuitive for players depending on what it is. Another thing that Overprime has that I really, really, really love is their kill feed. How it pops up and then whoever got the kill like flips over to the middle and it shows the other one fade out. That's more UI animation. Again, showing that intuitive nature of the kill that just happened.
Oh yeah,
so
they
I think
showed
it's
that off
super
a couple
cool.
weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that looked really good. Jedi, what'd you think about the updates to the Trello?
I mean, it's specifically the UI stuff. My wife is a UI and UX person. Like, that's what she does professionally. So I've gotten a chance to like by proxy pick up on a lot of stuff, and it's really, really, really interesting how important and sometimes I think underutilized UI and UX in video games really is. I mean, if you look at like even just streaming services, right? Like if you go to Netflix versus Amazon Prime, the drastic difference between the usability and the interactions that you have, it can actually put you off on wanting to use one platform over another, right? Same thing with Twitch and YouTube, the usability in that regard. So when you look at video games putting a lot of emphasis and effort, and this was something we praised Ethereal for with their improvements on the UI. If you don't have a really good UI that's engaging and useful to your player base, then you're really really missing the mark, because that's literally the front line of information that your player needs to be able to take in. Are they easily able to access all the stuff that they need to be paying attention to? And so just seeing that alone, the animation improvements, that to me, the animation means that they're going to be creating things that your eyes are naturally drawn to, or things that are not going to be as distracting as maybe they were before, right? So like that's to me the biggest. And then the training ground detail improvement, I think that's pretty cool. Obviously that's one I want to see what it is that they're doing as far as that's concerned, but the UI animation thing I think was the most exciting for me. What about you, Dapper?
When it comes to the Trello updates, the visual UI update, I think is a good thing in multiple regards, hopefully. Because it could also mean like it makes something that seemed really cool much more hype, like pentakills. As Jelly Knees mentioned, that they updated the kill feed and how it shows up there. So they might have updated what happens when you get orb prime and when you dunk prime, when you get a spirit, pentakills, triple kills, stuff like that. So seeing what they actually do with more dynamic aspects of the UI outside of just leveling, I think would be an interesting thing, because then it might bring more hype. Like if you get a pentakill and like the whole screen like glows golden for a second, that'd be awesome. Who knows what they're going to actually do with it. As for the training ground, I actually looked into a little bit more detail. By a little bit, I just clicked on training ground details, and that showed, I think it was like utility or settings or something like that. So I don't think that some of the people in the community had been speculating like, oh, the training ground update wasn't that big, it was probably just like changing the aesthetic. But in other updates, they always mention like this is a visual update or this is a sound update. They mention what it is. So I imagine what they're doing with the training grounds is, hopefully making it so that way you get more customization there. Because in CBT2, you could buy items, you could level up. That was really about it in terms of what you could actually do in the training area. So hopefully by them making it like a utility fix, they make it so hopefully you can play with other people. You can decide to put a bot down, give that bot items, who knows. So I think that is a much bigger update than people might initially realize, and something that Overprime desperately needed, along with all the other games, to my knowledge, is a way to theory craft, because there aren't really any good ways to do that as of this exact moment. So hopefully that gets added through that update.
And I know Jelly
Well,
will
and
want
so-
to go just real quick, because that training ground was actually how a lot of the stuff during the CBT that me and Jelly, when we were really like trying to figure out, the bigger picture of how the game would work, we were using a combination of, the custom games and the training ground. So I agree completely. That was super impactful on being able to theory craft and figure out item builds and all that stuff and see what actually is good and not good. So yeah, I agree. What were you gonna say, Jelly? Sorry, I cut you off.
Something that Overprime has done really well is pull really good aspects from other game genres and incorporate them into Overprime to make the MOBA aspect feel better. Right? For instance, the hit stop animations from fighting games that Mangoose has talked about before, we've mentioned before. I think those are huge. Right? Toward that end, I would love to see fighting games AI, like tutorial AI, that you can set to be super aggressive or just run around in circles or whatever it is.
That'd be
I want to
nice.
see that kind of AI put into a MOBA
It's a really
training
good
ground
idea.
or practice mode,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can get, like, if I'm practicing skill shots, I want them to run back and forth and I can skill shot at them, and practice that. And I know Smite has something very close to that, but I want to see it more fleshed out. And I think Overprime definitely could be doing that kind of thing as well.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, and then if they attack back, then you can also test armor values and stuff like that. That would be
Mm-hmm.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
I see on here the buff monster icon revamp. I think this is in response to a lot of people didn't understand the timers on like red camp, blue camp, prime spirit, prime guardian. I really didn't have a problem with it, but apparently a lot of people did. So I'm glad to see that they are making adjustments to it. And I assume that that's what this is. Maybe it's just a better icon than just a red circle to let you know what's what. I don't know. I guess we'll find out sooner or later.
Yeah, it's one of those
Yeah.
things that it's pure speculation until you see it. Yeah, it could be better timers visually on the map. Yeah, it could just be a different symbol on the map. It might also, depend how long that sort of like small little infographic appears when you get the buff, because during CBT2 that lasted for like half a second. So unless you were taking times to read like a section of it every time you got that buff, you were not going to be able to read everything that first time.
All right, this time I'm
So-
going to read from the fourth word on.
Exactly. So, maybe that's what they changed. So you can actually get the time to read the buff. Who knows?
I agree.
Did any of you get a pentakill during the CBT? I don't remember what their, I don't know what their pentakill looks like because Convey kind of ruined my hexakill really, but our friend Convey.
I mean, yeah, no, I got pentakills nonstop, man. Goose, why don't you remember how many pentakills I got every single game? I was getting pentakill after pentakill, man. I
think
don't
anybody in our
honestly
group-
remember
yeah.
getting one, but I couldn't say that I didn't either. I don't know. It's one of those things. I don't remember enough one way or the other
Yeah.
to remember if that existed in any form or fashion in the last CBT.
I was just
So,
trying to think
I
about
kn-
their.
Yeah, I never got a pentakill personally, though that is a sore subject because I got a quadra kill and I was about to get the last one, but the support that was just trying to figure out the game got the last hit and stole it from me at the end. So I can guarantee that I nearly got a pentakill. But I did play with people and they got pentakills. So the voiceover would do like a much more emotional pentakill.
Yeah.
And, there would be a graphic up there. It wasn't grandiose, the graphic itself, though that's why they did update it as shown in their work in progress. But it was there and it did feel awesome, even if you weren't the one to get it, because then everyone hears pentakill and it just is announced to everyone in a grandiose manner. So I think they did a good job originally. So depending how they change the voiceover, or if they do, the new graphic did look really good.
Right on. Well, I think that's about it for Overprime. Chat, if you guys have anything that you want to ask about Overprime, go ahead and throw it in the comments right now. And do you guys have anything else you want to say about Overprime before we move on to the next updates?
We've got to be getting close to some announcement from them.
Dude,
Like,
it's
right.
gotta be.
every single week, I'm just sitting there like, "Ooh, is this the week? I see an announcement. Like, what are we doing?" And nothing yet. But so the interesting thing is on Friday they put out that like speed drawing of Twin Blast.
Oh, I forgot to put that in the updates. Yeah.
And that was not on their YouTube account. That was on a different, I assume, Korean Korean art YouTubers account that has 130,000 subscribers on YouTube. Does this consistently for Netmarble, especially because a lot of their stuff is Netmarble content. And I think that's a brilliant way, reaching out to those creators that have their own audience, but getting your game and your name out there to these audiences. Another brilliant way to put the game out to more people to get them excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
J-Man,
I
how you
guess-
doing, dude? OP has not said anything about new modes yet.
Yet.
I mean, when
Yeah.
it comes to new modes, I know that they talked about, I think for EA, that they're going to come out with ranked out of the gate on top of their casual mode. And ranked is where you're going to get the draft mode. So, I mean, outside of that information we got a while ago, I don't think there's anything new specifically.
And I would assume that in that draft mode, at least initially, there'll still be mirror matchups. But I know that their goal is to get to the point where they do not have mirror matchups. But we'll have to see eventually how that is. I guess my question is, we wait to see if there are any other questions. It's just more for Dapper, since he's the new guy on our call here. Since you're new to the whole genre so far, and now you've gotten a chance to play Overprime, I'm assuming you didn't play Predecessor, but you've played lots of Fault. Out of those two experiences and coming into MOBAs as a whole, what are you feeling like? What's got you excited? What's got you nervous? And what other games did you play that led you to this in the first place?
When it came to Overprime, I had dabbled a little bit into League of Legends prior, so that's how I knew what MOBAs were.
Mhm.
Because it's hard to get into the MOBA genre without ever hearing about League of Legends.
Big true.
Yeah, exactly. But I actually learned about Overprime through a friend of mine who was a Murdoch main back in Paragon days. So he told me about, hey, there's this game coming out soon called Overprime. I want to do the CBT 1, and that's how I got into this whole thing, was just through him. And then from that point on, it's been my own drive to get through this. Between Overprime and Fault, those are two different play styles.
Sure.
And I personally prefer the Overprime playstyle because I myself, when it comes to a lot of my content that I put out for Overprime, a lot of it is like me doing my best to be as fast as possible. May that be in getting first blood, may that be getting first tower, whatever. And even in some of my videos, just literally as fast movement speed as possible. And Overprime accentuates that with sprint mode. So having sprint mode, having speed boost items, Narbash being added during the middle of that for even more of a speed boost. Like, I got the feeling of adrenaline as I'm running through the lanes,
That's
as
so
I'm
cool.
trucking somebody over. Because, self promo here real quickly, but I have a video where I was playing Narbash in the jungle as an AD bruiser. And that was a lot of fun because what I would do is I would do the speed boost and then another speed boost item and just run somebody over as I'm chucking through them.
That's actually really genius, to be honest.
Oh no, it's great. Because the other thing is, like, if I'm with somebody, they also got that speed boost. And if they're in sprint mode, they go faster than me because I have to stop sprinting to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But in from what I've seen of Predecessor and what I've played of Fault, you don't really get that feeling. Those are more
Sure.
tactical, more methodical games where your actions have to be thought out. You gotta plan for every tactical situation. You gotta be able to react on the fly, and you do in Overprime as well. But those you have to play very precise. While Overprime, you just get to have fun and, play the pace that you desired. And that was one thing I tried to advocate a lot during Overprime was you can choose the pacing of the game, unlike other MOBAs that I'd seen. If you want to hard shove lane and force the opponent to stay in their tower, you can do that and still poke them out. If you wanted to farm, you just play it safe. If they want to engage, back up, but keep focusing on farming. So I think Overprime being able to play either way and both are valid options is why I prefer it, because it's a choose your own playstyle thing. So
It's really
that's
good
that's my personal opinion on why I preferred Overprime. Plus, with a limited amount of items, you could only do so much. But as somebody who enjoys doing off-meta stuff, weird things like I did an AD Bellica build, because in Overprime, only two things really scaled off of energy power. That was the knock-up and the bomb. Yeah, you could place the drone and that shocks people, but that never really did anything anyway. People only used it for mana. So the way I thought of it was it's a knock-up, and then her ultimate scales off of missing mana anyway and not energy power. So I'm only really losing damage on that right mouse button. So I just did AD, and that was a lot of fun. And I think that's what Overprime's rewards is, that creativity. Can you play this a different way as long as you're not actively throwing? It's a challenge. And that's what I enjoyed, is you could challenge yourself, but still be a contribution to your team.
And I think especially with the new items, that's only going to be
Oh, yeah.
accentuated. That you're going to
100%.
see all kinds of different play styles start to emerge now that itemization can actually be that wide and that expansive. 100%. I do want to talk real quick about the potential for ranked. With the 5 additional characters that we already know about that are going to theoretically be playable in the early access release, they technically have enough to do 10 bans and have somebody in each role, assuming one was banned from each role on both teams. So it's theoretically possible. They could even do like a voting system of everybody vote and then the 2 highest ones get banned or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But they do have enough characters to theoretically input some kind of draft mode.
That's
and so
fine.
you wouldn't get as many mirror matches.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to go as aggressive as like League of Legends banning system because they have 140 characters. Let's be honest. Like doing a full
100%.
possibly 10 unique bans would be a little too much. But I do like the idea of actually having a voting system. Like, hey, let's put in who we think we should ban, and then 1 or 2 of those gets banned out, and that's probably.
I think
fine.
of like League of Legends has a mode called All for One.
Yep.
That you got, and very similar to that, you can all pick what character you want your entire team to be playing, So for instance, you could do that if if 3 people voted for Narbash to ban, then Narbash gets banned out, and then you
Sure.
move on to the next one or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I like that idea. There are quite a few questions in there, Mingus. Did you get a chance to pick and choose which ones you wanted to go through?
Yeah. I mean, we're hanging around a little too long on the topic, though. I think.
Okay.
I think we need to move along to the next thing. Just save the comments towards the end.
Okay.
Save the questions.
I'll put
towards
them in the
end,
thing.
and
All right.
we'll hit them up. But let's move on now to Ethereal
I got you guys.
and talk about the Ethereal updates. So the Ethereal
Is
updates.
Mangoose gonna do the transition?
I did.
Oh, Mangoose! 2 for 2.
Look at me go! Look at me go!
Progress. Let's go.
It's fucking nuts over here. So Ethereal Jelly gave me a video to show you guys as Talos's new VFX. So Jelly, you want to take it away on Talos?
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of the abilities, right? I'm not going to give you everything, Mangoose. It's going to go out throughout
I put the wrong video up though.
Mangoose.
I've got
Typical
the
Mangoose.
I've got the Ethereal VFX.
This guy. Well, so this week, guys, how about this? This week on our social medias, you're going to be seeing all of Talos's new VFX and your first look at new Talos in game as well, because he is getting a visual update as a character. So not what you're seeing on screen because Mangoose didn't put the right video up. Tisk tisk, Mangoose. But we will be seeing some new visual effects for Talos as well as his new model in the game, which is super exciting. Because Talos was one of those guys, he was one of the first characters ever built for Ethereal. And comparatively to some of the newer characters, he's definitely showing that difference in quality a little bit from years ago to now. So it's cool to see for sure.
I just changed it on the fly. I'm pretty goddamn proud of myself right now.
He's adapting. Careful.
Yeah,
he's learning. He's learning.
The VFX are being shown on the ice lane here, and that's really cool. I love that people are getting to see the lanes a little more, even though we did go a little more in depth on the various map changes and everything. So it just what video did you send me?
What are you talking about?
That's it. It's just the visual cut.
Just
and
the
that's
one.
it.
I told you.
Okay.
It's
one
just
ability.
one animation.
You get one. That's all you get.
Well, you gave it to me
First
late,
taste
so I
is
couldn't.
free, Mangoose. Follow our social medias for the rest. There you go.
Right on. So Talos was one of my absolute favorites in the game. Either for, I don't know what you would call it, fire lane, which is kind of like the solo lane for Ethereal. Is it? I don't know. It's kind of, it keeps switching up as we've gone through. But whatever solo lane is, Talos makes a good solo laner, but he also makes a pretty outstanding jungler. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, Talos Jungle is so much fun. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, this is actually a really good visual on the ice lane, getting a kind of a view of that because we didn't get as much of a visual on that.
A little bit. Yeah. Just a smidge.
Ice lane is cool. Fire lane's still cooler, but it goes fire lane, ice lane, and then void lane. Void lane needs to be more void-y, void-ish, void-like. I don't know the word for it, but I don't know. I need something to feel like you're in a void if you're gonna call it void lane. Otherwise, just call it something else. Like just call it forest lane or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, give it something less cool sounding. But if you're gonna have a cool name like void lane, then you need to have it feel voidy. The other two feel like they're zones. So, but that's just my simple feedback that I've been giving probably for a long time at this point. But yeah, no, it's cool.
Now, Dapper, you're kind of just now learning about Ethereal, yeah?
Yeah.
Heard its name, and from what I had been told, it was one of the parazombies. But as looking into it, it's definitely not. It does look interesting from the first gameplay that I've seen, which was about 30 minutes ago. It looks interesting. It looks, unique enough. It doesn't look like any other of the games that I had seen. From what I had heard, or I think somebody mentioned to me, like the idea that the minimap only shows your zone, because apparently the game's in zones, as I just now learned. I think that's really cool because then you have to communicate more if you want to have total map pressure. So that itself already seems unique and really cool to me. From the website, it looks like they only have 7 myths, which I believe are what the champions are called. They're called myths.
Yep.
So I know.
Correct.
more from the game to come out. I'm excited to start looking into that project because I enjoy multiple MOBAs because they invite different builds, different tactics, different characters, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm excited to learn more about it.
Yeah, and Ethereal introduces environmental hazards into the mix too, which you don't really get in
Really?
the other games. Yeah, if you're in combat and you fall off the lane, you're probably going to die because you're going to take pretty massive fall damage. And then you have like a run who can pick people up and then throw them in whatever direction he wants. So if you can catch somebody near the edge of a lane, like you could throw them down for damage, but if you catch them on the outside of like fire or ice lane, you just throw them off the map and they're done. They're dead. They're gone.
Yeah, I think that makes that extremely unique compared to everything else because, I don't know of MOBAs that have environmental hazards. So if you can add that adds another level of gameplay on top of it all to where not only you have to pay attention to your opponent and, either monsters or minions, you have to pay attention to where you are standing and what your champion can do to either force the opponent off and make it a sumo match or not fall off yourself and try and escape from that fate. And plus,
Dude,
that can lend to
great.
that can lend to so many different new style characters that maybe like when you're around an enemy, they take more environmental damage or a self pull every passive, like on a passive cooldown. Who knows? You can do so much more with that because you have a unique mechanic like that. So I'm definitely more excited the more I hear about this game.
You don't see many knockbacks in the Paragon remakes, but a knockback in Ethereal would be. It could be so much more than just a knockback because you could just be knocking somebody off of a cliff or knocking somebody into something else.
Yeah, I think Murdoch is the
absolutely.
only one that has an inherent knockback throughout all the games.
Yeah.
I think he's the only one.
Yeah.
I mean, are we forgetting about the big man's ult that literally swings a huge axe and knocks people back?
Severog, yeah.
Severog?
It's literally the biggest knockback in the game.
That's the only two real knockbacks, though. I mean,
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm gonna be honest, that never really felt like an ultimate to me.
yeah, well, it's like
Me
a low
too.
cooldown ultimate.
I get why it is. I get why it is because the displacement is massive. I looked back at
It's
one of
a
my
huge
videos. It's like,
disruption
oh
to
my
it, yeah.
god, he went really high in the air and far back. Looking back at some of the footage.
I still think we need a
But-
Super Slugger Severog skin. Like, just give him a baseball bat and so he can swing for the fences, dude. It'd be perfect.
It
But
would
yeah,
be.
for Ethereal, I can definitely see how a knockback mechanic would be potentially stronger in that sort of game compared to other MOBAs in general.
Yeah.
Because other MOBAs, a knockback isn't even that, satisfying sometimes.
I think what's cool, and we've talked about this a lot with Ethereal, is that the team is open to making the myths have really cool and fun kits. The hard part is it's been balancing sometimes after the cool badass kit comes out. As Jelly could tell you, sometimes these guys get released into playtesting and then they're just so dominant because they just do so many cool things all at once, and then you're just like, okay, well, how can anyone outplay around this? So that's obviously the challenge that comes with all that uniqueness, but that's also really exciting, right? Especially if you're a dev getting to work on these things and coming up with just throwing any idea at the wall and see what sticks, and that you have a team behind you that's like, well, let's give it a shot. Like we could make it, try and make it work, and they can steal obviously or borrow ideas from other MOBAs and make those unique to Ethereal. And I know that they've already kind of done that, and so I'm really excited to see obviously as this progresses more. And so getting anybody new who hasn't gotten a chance like Dapper to learn about Ethereal, there's so much cool stuff, and yeah, it's a really exciting project.
Empowered R&B on Crunch. Yeah, that's another knockback. That one wouldn't work out so well for you in Ethereal though, because then you're just both going over the cliff.
Hey, sometimes
Can we really consider that a knockback, though? It's more of a grab that you're taking them with you.
Yeah.
Knockback is typically you stay stationary, they go flying.
Wait, okay, what about
they get knocked back? I mean, you go with them, but
Steals knockback his shield
yeah,
bash thing.
that's a bit of a knockback. Yeah.
You guys are so wrong. There's so many knockbacks.
Okay, in all fairness, I remember Overprime, and it wasn't a knockback then. It was a charge into and slow.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's fair. Sorry,
But
That's true.
I mean, when it comes to Ethereal, a character idea that immediately came to my mind that wouldn't really do much in other MOBAs is a character that switch places with the target. Like, I feel like that could be done really interesting in Ethereal that you wouldn't be able to really do much with in another MOBA. Because, positioning is great in other MOBAs, but either me standing in my allies or in the enemy lines might not change much depending the character kit. But, like, in a game like this where if you're being knocked out of the ring, you switch, now they're being knocked out of the ring.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's definitely a lot they can do
That
with
would be
unique
really
characters.
cool.
Mhm.
Jelly,
That you-
there was a character in League of Legends that used to do that. Do you remember? I can't think of it, but I swear that was it.
Urgot's old ultimate.
That's what it was. Urgot's old ultimate used to swap people around, and it was devastating sometimes. And other times you just put yourself into the team and were by yourself while that other guy's by themselves. So it's kind of like, well,
Sounds like it'd make a perfect right click where there's a pro and a con to your ability.
It sure does. It sure does.
Medkit said, and Howie Mod, old Howie Mod, yeah. Okay, there's a lot of knockbacks in Paragon apparently. My bad, dog.
Idiots.
This is why Mangoose is being replaced as the host for FTM.
As far as balance for Ethereal goes, I was extremely impressed that Leah felt balanced. If you could take a hero that could actually fucking just fly around the map, like just fucking fly over shit and into people and make them feel balanced, then that's pretty goddamn impressive. And Leah actually did feel balanced. She didn't feel over.
The other thing with Ethereal that is, for lack of a better way to put it, easily forgotten or not remembered, is there's an extra ability per character, not including the class ability. That the characters, it's QERF and right click as abilities, not just the QER right click. So it's 5 total abilities, and you've got your class ability on top of it. So it's a whole extra thing involved at the same time.
Class ability?
Oh, that's a whole thing.
Yeah, and it's 6v6 Dapper. It's not 5v5.
Yeah, I did read that as well. And that, I mean, this game doesn't feel like it's sticking to any sort of MOBA-esque thing outside of lanes.
It's a loose cannon.
Which is awesome. Which is awesome.
Convention went out the window a long time ago.
Which can be a great thing, because that means it'll stick out more. 6v6, what sounds like 6 abilities, because you said the 5 and then the class ability. So 6 total abilities.
Destructible
environment.
Yep.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
This is great. I love this. This is my dream come true right here.
It's a very ambitious game, to say the least, but it's being made by people that want to make a game that stands out and is unique. It's a very much like a passion project. Gamers making the game, it seems like, more times than not. So yeah. Ethereal win, playtest win. I'm just reading chat's mind right now. That's what's coming to, because every time we talk about Ethereal.
Yeah, any game that rewards customization, thinking outside the box, using unconventional tactics, those are the games that I enjoy, because you can just do so much with that you wouldn't ever think of in other games. So I'm excited to learn more about Ethereal, and hopefully I can get into some like closed behind the door playtest.
All right. I think that's going to close it out for Ethereal. Let's move on in to Fault now. And we're going to talk about Fault this week, which we don't really have that much for Fault. They went to Gamescom like we said that they were going to go. They released a couple of Twitter videos from Gamescom. We already talked about the patch that got dropped on the last FTM that kind of got unceremoniously dropped on us. They didn't really advertise it at all. But the Gamescom thing, it didn't seem to be as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. But they did release a Gamescom exclusive Bellica skin that looked really good, I think. She was in the colors of the German flag. And yeah, overall, pretty neat. I think the only big thing, and we talked about this on the partner panel too, was there was like a quick interview with Ryan Red, the community manager for Strange Matter. And during that, he was saying that they were meeting with investors and publishers and all kinds of people. And like they were saying on the partner panel, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're looking for investors and stuff. But why would you even meet with investors if you don't want somebody to invest in your game? Or why would you meet with a publisher if you don't want a publisher? So, I mean, Fault has been just a community-led game, a community-funded game for such a long time. I don't know. What do you guys think? How would you feel if Fault kind of abandoned that whole community-funded thing and picked up an investor? I'm not saying that that's what this was about. I'm not saying that's what they're doing. But if they picked up a publisher, if they picked up an investor, how would you guys feel about that? Let's start with Jedi this time. Jedi, how would you feel if they got some money, if they got a flow of money in?
So the money part aside, I think what that would mean to me is that an investor, so a third party, an outside person looking on the inside, getting to kind of dissect feels like it's worth investing in. So that would be exciting if I'm a community member, because that means that somebody else outside of the game that I've already been playing in the dev team says, we want to put money into this. We want to invest into this and make it better or give you more resources. So that's good. The other side of that, right, as we know with a lot of games that get outside investors, is that when you have to now start answering to a mommy or to a daddy, things start changing that maybe aren't always in the community's best interest. With that being said, we already have fucking loot boxes in the game, so they can go. Anyway, I
That
don't
was
know
my
how much.
exact thought of like, great, so the bad guy is going to be fault already because they've already done the thing that these corporations would ask them to do. Big deal. There we go.
So yeah, that's not, I mean, again, it's exciting if that's the case, that they have somebody who's willing to invest in the project and obviously gives them an opportunity to stay and remain relevant as these other two games get closer to early access. I don't know if it'll be enough. Now that's obviously in Fault's court to figure out how to continue to make the game better. But yeah, that's my take.
Puppet's Hot, thank you so much for the super chat. We will get to that, just not right now. We're going to continue with this conversation, then I'll come back to that, to the CC question you had there. Dapper, what do you think if Fault picked up investors or a publisher?
So I picked up Fault right before free to play. Didn't enjoy it. Free to play happened, then I started to enjoy it. So I've not been around the Fault community too terribly long. So if they picked up an investor, I think overall it'd be a good thing, because from the community itself, a lot of people already have bad blood with SMS, especially from what I've seen and heard from being on the partner panel and listening to some of them. So only getting more resources in terms of funding or more people, you can only dislike them so much more if that's what the community would dislike. You know, they already had loot boxes, which in my opinion didn't add anything. All it did was add the lesser orbs. Those are free anyway. Like, they have the prime core and prime keys, but I never see a reason to get those because you get orbs often enough. So it's not even really funding adding those loot boxes because I don't see a reason to buy them. So having an investor would only help, and from, you know, my outside perspective of, they seem like they need resources. They aren't getting them from the community because no one's buying loot boxes. They're not getting them internally from what I'm aware of. But I just think overall it'd be helpful because it seems like resources are the thing that SMS lacks. So if they're able to get that, awesome. You know, they can start doing something with it. If it's what they want, awesome. If it's what somebody else above them wants, well, we'd probably never know.
Jelly, what do you think?
So I think Viking touched on an important thing that we've seen with Predecessor as an example, is that when you get outside investment and you disclose, hey, we've received outside investment, whether it be the $4 million or the $20 million, there's a sense of legitimacy applied to the game overnight, right? That it says, well, if other people are willing to invest that much money into this thing, clearly there's something worth investing in, right? And that's just automatic in a lot of people's minds. So that's one aspect of searching for investment. But in general, indie games become, for lack of a better way to put it, a big successful company in two different ways. They are massively successful as an indie game that everybody's out there spreading their name like wildfire. They're on Twitter. They're doing all of these things. They have hundreds of thousands of players. An example like a PUBG, right? Where they became a big company because of their success, and their name became huge because of that success. The flip side of flip side of that is you get acquired by a big company or invested in by a big company to make you get to that level of success. For instance, if Epic Games buys a game and puts out a big marketing campaign that they've purchased this game or they're posting it on Epic Games only and all of these things, that is a whole different sense of legitimacy applied to that game because of that Epic Games backing directly.
Mhm.
So between those two things, I do think that is the next logical step for Fault if they're going to continue development into the future. And we've seen that they are not going to blow up just as an individual company from a community perspective.
Mhm.
So the next step would be to look for outside investment or publishers to then push them to that goal via that market as well.
I think if they do pick up investors or a publisher or just a large sum of money somehow, if somehow the community suddenly invests a large sum of money in default, if that happens, the main thing is they need to get their shit together, because that's kind of been their excuse so far. Like everybody says, oh, well, they can't do all these skins, or they can't do all these great animations, or they can't do this, or they can't do that, because they're community funded. And it's kind of been, it's been an excuse, and it's been a bit of a rallying flag for them as well. Like, they are the community funded, the community controls the success of this game. That's kind of a nice tag to have. But if they do get money, they need to get their shit together, because we've seen time and time again that SMS gets in Fault's way. Like, SMS will drop the ball constantly. We saw it recently with the Iggy and Scorch patch. That's a huge patch. They've hyped every other hero. They've done like trailers and all sorts of stuff. They did nothing for Iggy and Scorch. Nothing at all. Just dropped
Not even a mastery race.
What do you mean? They added a movie where he's in.
Yeah. They made an entire movie
Just to advertise this character.
Yeah, and then wait a month to release him.
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
So I was thinking about it and I agree with you, Mangoose, about Gamescom. The way that it felt like going into it was that there was something more happening with Fault at Gamescom than what did happen.
Yeah.
Whether that's the community's fault, their fault, probably a mix of both, is what it is. I think that's the reason, though, that the Iggy patch got dropped on us with nothing, with no fanfare, is they didn't want to get to Gamescom and have it not happen, because they weren't doing something bigger at Gamescom. There's no video they're doing at Gamescom where it's like, and Fault Elder Orb and new character and blah, 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 right? So the whole community is going to go into Gamescom expecting this and be drastically let down. So it's better to just, here's the hero before Gamescom. We're done. Please don't expect this from us. That way they don't have to worry about that bad press going into Gamescom or coming out.
It was
of
because he doesn't have internet. That's what we figured out. That Germany doesn't have internet, so
Yeah,
therefore
yeah.
they couldn't release anything. No,
I made the joke after the partner panel. This is a bit of a distasteful joke, and I'm still considering whether I should actually say it live or not. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I don't think they did a mastery race because they didn't want to be in the middle of Germany talking about a mastery race.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Oh,
Good joke
Moving
though.
on.
Good joke though. Just more reasons why Mangoose is not going to be hosting FTM ever again.
Seriously.
I know, right? Jeez.
Mangoose's final show, everybody.
This
Oh,
fucking
boy.
guy. This fucking
All
right,
well,
let's
I
talk
mean,
about Pops.
well, here's the thing about Fault as well, is like, how bad can it be if they're building esports teams?
Yeah.
Apparently, because that was also kind of casually dropped during the Twitter post as well. They casually mentioned like, oh yeah, we've got esports team forming, and they're excited to meet new players and see what they can do. Like, that was casually mentioned during that Gamescom tweet.
Yeah.
By the
Yikes.
way.
I think this is what bums me out, and this is something that goes back to a lot of what Mangoose has talked about before, about like, you know, that Fault continues to be, or SMS continues to be like that guy that you bring over to someone's house and they just, you know, take a big shit on the floor or something. I don't know. I don't remember his whole story about things, and like it has sex with his daughter or something. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know the
Just got a lot worse.
I don't know the joke that he always says, but honestly, like, because the patch that they released most recently is a good fucking patch. To me, like, it had so many good things. Like, it had like so many quality of life improvements for new players. Iggy and Scorch comes out, who's super fun to play. It just bothers me. I think as I've gotten more and more invested in like all of these games as they get ready to come out, that they continue to shit on the floor and fuck daughters. You know, it just isn't right.
It's piss in the fridge and fuck their wife. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. There you go.
All right then.
I mean, you know, overall, SMS is still around. Fault
Still there.
Fault is trying. It feels like sometimes. Fun fact: they're doing a hot fix later tonight. Because apparently, Manager's crossbow was, you know, one of the items was working unintended in a way. But hey, for hot fix tonight, so they're paying attention.
Yeah.
To some extent. So, you know, good on them. But it's also still upsetting that people didn't talk about the other new character that got added, Richter. You know,
I'm also secretly hoping that if they do get this investor, that part of the discussion for this investor is kind of cleaning that shit up. right? Like that's what you would hope as a community member is it's like, okay, they've got somebody else that's like overlooking, they're going to hire maybe some more people to come in and kind of like clean some of these aspects up and let the guys who were brought on to be devs focus on being devs rather than,
Everything.
quote unquote community managers or whatever, like they can actually just focus on trying to make the game as best as possible. The idea would hopefully be that they don't lose, the connection that we all feel to them, that they're, were funded by all of us. But I mean, even like we mentioned, or you talked about, other games getting bought or starting out as indie devs, but they all get bought out, So Bluehole, came in and bought out, Players Unknown, and the game did change a little bit after that, but they got massive funding to make the servers better and the quality became so much better. The game, went through ups and downs, but it's still a wildly successful game, and as a dev for that game, I would feel like, man, we really did our thing. League of Legends at one point was an indie dev, now they're owned by Tencent and all that other stuff. But I don't think that having another company come in and provide that funding is inherently a bad thing, as long as you get to, like Riot did, keep some of the control over how the game works, that the big daddy funder is just that you get to profit off of our success and our vision. So if SMS can keep that as part of the fun, bringing on a partner, that's fine. I'm okay with it.
Plus, there's corporate accountability behind that. If you are going to have investors, if you are going to have people helping you, then obviously not only do you have a higher standard within your community, now you literally have a higher standard by a company funding you and making sure that your game thrives. So that does multiple things. It shows that this game is worth investing in. It shows the community that, hey, we've got the funding that we've been asking for, so we can start putting on that. But then they also have the company holding them accountable. Like, we're investing in you. Make sure you do something with this. So that's always good as well.
What's your guys' take on Ruba's comment?
I think we should get to Pop's comment first.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I want
fine.
to cover Pop's comment. How much CC should be acceptable in a MOBA? Smite at the time I left had a hard time balancing it. Paragon had plenty, but it didn't feel miserable for some reason. Maybe not enough characters with hard CC to get stun locked. This is an interesting question because I think a lot of people in Paragon's lifespan did have an unreasonably hard time with CC. I think it's because they hadn't played a lot of MOBAs and they didn't know how much CC is normally in a MOBA. Like, CC is a pretty normal thing. I think Paragon had a pretty healthy amount of CC, and I don't think the CC, like, they balanced it out quite a bit. And then you had characters like Yin that were anti-CC. You had characters like Terra that were anti-CC. I think Paragon did the wrong thing by trying to balance by introducing new heroes that specifically countered the meta, but overall they had diminishing returns on the CC, so it never felt as bad as some other MOBAs I've played. What do you guys take on CC?
Diminishing returns on CC is a big one. Honestly, I think that helps with Paragon a lot, is that there were a lot of characters with CC in Paragon and a lot of long CC abilities that, because of those diminishing returns, you didn't feel so like against the CC in the game because of it, right? Like, it's so easy in other MOBAs that you walk into a team fight and then congratulations, you spend 3 seconds staring at your screen, smashing your keyboard, trying to cast an ability because you've been CC'd the whole time. And very rarely in Paragon did it ever feel that way. So I think I'm not going to apply like a percentage. I'd have to really think about it more of like what CC uptime looks like. I think Decker in Predecessor is not it, but that's a whole other topic of conversation.
You don't know yet. You don't know yet.
You're right. I don't know yet. I feel like the uptime is a little nuts, but we'll see. But I do think there's a fine line to travel of who gets CC, how much CC, and what are the compensation factors for CC that have to be figured out.
Yeah, when it comes to CC, I think a good way to balance it is what's the kill time in the game? Because you can have a 2-second stun, which is a lot depending the game. In a game like Fault, where you can be 2-shot, 2 seconds means you literally don't get to play the game in any capacity. In Overprime, when you were doing either a 1v1 or a 2v1, a 2-second stun gives you plenty of time to react because the time to kill wasn't insanely fast. So if it's just going to be a 2-second stun into 1.5 second stun is 3.5 seconds, if the survivability is long enough, that's not too big of an issue. But if in like fighting games, hit stun, where the more you're hit, the less effective it is, that could be a good way to balance it too. If the time to kill is decently high, so I think that just kind of depends to how durable the characters are. If they're weaker, then diminishing returns. If they're everyone's decently healthy, a flat CC is fine. But I do think games need to implement more ways outside of just a flat stun, like a root, a charm, fear, whatever, various ways. But instead of it just being and now take your hand off the keyboard for the next so many seconds, you can't do anything. If they can find new ways to CC, that would be awesome.
And I do want to add that I don't think you should remove the ability for teams to coordinate CC, right? Where if my team is, we all have, all 5 of us or all 6 of us in Ethereal's case have some form of CC, and we layer that CC accordingly, there is a certain amount that we should be rewarded for that because we actually timed those things correctly. And that, I don't want that to be taken away. I don't think you should just make it that like there's no reason to have multiple CCs because that'll just feel worse. I think that's an important thing to add, is that there still should be reward in coordinating CC.
I'll also just quickly add that because I agree with everything you guys have mentioned, but I think with like these para zombies or third-person MOBAs that are at least out right now, is there's a lot less point and click CC. Almost all the CC into itself still requires like a skill shot of some kind, so you have to be able to. It's not just like so easy as pressing the button and now that person CC'd, like in other games where it's that a CC can be that way. There are a few in the para zombies that have that, but it's not as prevalent. And I completely agree with Ruba saying that it's more important to give your players the ability to handle CC than it is to control the CC into itself. And I kind of think that there's probably a give and take on both of those, but I agree that giving people the ability to flash or to cleanse or to go into a stasis or any of those things, which are already in I think most of these games, if not all of them, those things can help with CC. So I think it's rewarding CC opportunities based on skill more times than not, and rewarding skill for removing CC or dodging the CC. That's really, to me, where it comes down more so than the actual CC itself, although fears and all those other things are fun, and charms and all that stuff. Those are just cool, fun ways of doing the CC. But yeah, and that's my take on it. But good question.
Yeah, I don't think Paragon 2 they had ways to deal with CC. However, they weren't ways that you could like just cleanse a CC. Like you had Purity Sensor that would cleanse everybody of a status effect. And it would prevent you from getting CC'd if you used it prior to getting CC'd. Like you couldn't get stunned and then use Purity Sensor to get out of it. Same with Hunter's Guile. You couldn't just get stunned and then hit Hunter's Guile and just be out of the stun. No, you had to see that Rampage Rock coming, hit Hunter's Guile, take the damage from it, but still get through it. You know what I mean? So that's, I think, one of the reasons a lot of people complain in Paragon about CC. Now, I don't know about Smite. Like Popstar's talking about Smite. I don't know about Smite CC situation because I just didn't really play Smite that much.
Well, I think Smite, and I didn't play it a lot, but I played it a decent amount. Smite, I think, has a lot more point and click type CC, which can make it more oppressive because their skill sets are a lot more point and click. There's some that are absolutely skill shots, but they do have the opportunity to create more point and click. It's the same thing in League of Legends. League of Legends with CC, they struggle actually, and I think it's to exactly what Ruba's talking about. Having champions that are really good with CC and dashes and all those things, they're so oppressive that then you have to start adjusting numbers and doing all that other stuff, which League has struggled with, and which is why I think they've gotten a lot better more recently. But balancing around CC with point and click CC abilities is so hard because it's just there's nothing anyone could do about it. Literally, I pressed button. I didn't have to express any skill other than getting in range to press said skill. And so that makes it tough for sure. And I think that's more prevalent in Smite than it was in Paragon or any of these para zombies. Yeah. Cool.
Good conversation. I think we're going to ignore Ruba's comment though and move into Predecessor.
I mean, that's fine. We ignored Beardeds earlier and Loaxes earlier. If you want to ignore Ruba's now and then come back to them later, that's fine. I'm writing them all down in our thing. So
I run this shit.
You do. It's
for this episode.
Yeah, it's your show.
Yeah, until I get canceled for that Germany thing. No, let's go ahead and move into Predecessor. So Predecessor this week released the new sound effects and animations for their jump pads, and the jump pad animations look fantastic. There's screen shake when you land. The sound effect, I think it sounds good, but as I pointed out to you guys, I immediately thought whenever I heard the sound effect that it sounds like a t-shirt cannon, and now I can't get it out of my head every time I watch the video. But t-shirt cannon.
I'm amazed
sound
you didn't
effect
get a
aside,
video from Mangoose overlaying a t-shirt cannon over the shooter every time it goes off, because that's a peak Mangoose video right there.
Yeah, all right. But the animation though is smooth. Like you get, that's the great thing about Predecessor's animations is you don't just go from like stop to go, or you don't just go from this like you're in this pose and now you're in this pose. Like everything is a smooth, fluid transition, and you see that with the jump pad animations. You see them kind of burst up, and when you see them land, there's actually an actual landing. They've got the screen shake, and it feels like you're landing from a big, massive jump. That's definitely, I think, Predecessor's biggest strong point for me personally is the immersion you get from the way they've blended their animations and everything, all the work that they've done there. Dapper, did you see this video and what'd you think of it?
So I did see the video, and watching it again as you have it playing there, there's two things that I immediately notice. One, each character actually braces for landing. It's very hard to
So
tell if you're
cool.
not looking for it.
I was
But
gonna say the
characters
same
in,
thing.
yeah,
Mhm.
each character in their own way braces for landing. Faye does a
Yep.
barrel roll to get into the position. A lot of characters bend their knees. But more than that, they have a landing animation as well, to where they recoil on landing, where they're like crouched a little bit and then stand up as they go.
The
you know,
camera shakes a little bit too.
Yeah, the camera shakes a little bit, showing there's
Really,
an
really
actual impact there,
Mhm.
which is awesome. And each character with any of the jump pads so far, they have their own animations being midair and whatnot, which is already cool. That's in most games though. But for this, the audio sounds good. The animations, obviously, showing that that's what makes Predecessor its own thing, is the amount of detail in the animations. So. It looks interesting. Predecessor is actually the third Paragon remake that I started to learn about. So, I'm starting to learn about it more. But from what I've seen so far, it definitely seems like, it's going to be a good project. I'm excited to eventually try it out for the first time. Because
Me
it's the only
too.
one I haven't had the ability to test.
Same. Ruba, you need some testers, just for funsies.
Hey, we can show new stuff on the partner panel and partner panel.
FTM,
this thing.
FTM. I got you.
FTM,
And partner
yeah,
panel.
FTM,
yeah.
FTM. We're
Yeah.
partners of Predecessor now. Thank you for making us partners.
We appreciate you
Uh,
accepting our application.
It's free advertisement. You literally pay us nothing, and we just play the game because that's what we want.
Soon
what's-
TM.
I mean, for people who have played Fault and people that have played Overprime, I would say Predecessor is a happy medium in between the two.
Mm.
I think that's what it looks like from the videos I've seen, where it seems, visually more advanced and keeps some of the brawling aspects from the little bit that I had seen, but it's more tactical than Overprime, I'd say, from what I've seen so far.
I
Which
also
isn't much.
think this speaks a little bit to what we were talking about with Fault, about getting funding and seeing an improvement. And that's something that since they got their funding, they've released a decent amount of content since then. And it's all been really, really good. Like it's like, it feels like, I mean, we watched some of the old videos and seeing some of these newer videos, and there's a quality shift. Like I didn't think that the old videos were even that bad to begin with, but there definitely has been improvements in some of the minor details, but things that will make an impact. Like, some of these camera shakes and the sound quality and the visual, it helps. It makes your game more fun and enjoyable to be in. If you're going to spend 30 to 45 minutes in the game, you want to feel like you're doing it, and going across those jump pads and having that, because Overprime has it too. It does that like kind of like zoom out and then zooms back in kind of feel, and it's kind of cool and it feels visceral and powerful and fast. This one has a very similar feel but unique to itself, and I'm really, really excited about it. It continues to impress me that they got the money, and they're putting the money, at least as far as I can tell, putting the money into the project in a good way. Hopefully not just to some CEO's pocket, you know what I mean? So
Not in the Smokey's pocket, Smokey.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Smokey, gosh.
Eight
Yeah.
people working on it. Nice.
The fluidity, I think, is what really sets Predecessor apart from the other ones. And it's not just the fluidity of the animations, but fluidity of targeting. Just everything you do in Predecessor feels just a little bit better than the other ones. I think
Mm.
Overprime looks a little bit better, like a little more fantastic and over the top and cool. Fault is a little more thought out, but Fault's kind of behind the other two as far as visuals, I think. But yeah, but Pred's definitely they're at the top as far as when it comes to just sheer fluidity of the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
But shit, yeah. Do you guys have anything else to say about? Oh yeah. Predecessor was also at Gamescom. They were also at Gamescom.
Yep.
They were handing out stickers. I guess Ace and somebody else was there. I didn't quite look, but
So their
Cool.
internet worked.
yeah.
Well, they're not an indie company; they can afford it.
Oh, fair. They brought their own internet. They just like brought it with them. Yeah.
It's a little hotspot. It's a little hotspot.
Yeah.
Dirty Porker 69. I gotta answer this real quick. Project Stamina is a bit on the back burner right now. If you guys didn't know, there was a gigantic resurrection project. If you guys remember the game Gigantic, and it was called Project Stamina. There was a big blow up within the company. They shifted the heads of the departments around, so I have no updates for almost a year now on Project Stamina. So I'm very sorry if I do get something to cover on that. I'll put a video out on it. But yeah, I just wanted to.
I have to say
Put that
something
out
because
there.
I've watched this video now. This is totally not to Dirty Parker 69. Great name, by the way. But I'm not a fan of the out of range thing that pops up on the UI. I didn't notice it before. I just saw it now when she was shooting out into nothing. It was saying out of range every time she shot. I do not like that. I don't like being told that I'm out of range. Like, I don't want to see that every time. Did you guys see that in one of the videos? It was. All right, whatever. You guys can pay attention to it or not. I don't.
No,
care.
no, no. I mean, you're good. I do think it's unnecessary because obviously, if I'm not getting damage numbers, I'm out of range.
Mhm.
So I
Well,
can see
and-
why that would be helpful, but I can also see why it's just unnecessary information.
They have
Like-
hit markers. That's the weird thing. If you have hit markers in your game, if I'm hitting, I'm in range. If I'm not hitting, I'm out of range or I'm missing. Like
Yeah, that's the
it's
other-
very intuitive.
Yeah, if you've got hit markers, if you've got damage numbers that show up, if you've got effects that go off, there's a visible marker on the ground showing the distance. If you have all of that, I don't think you need to say you're not in range.
Don't
And-
be
and-
hating on features aimed at new players. Listen, dude, that's one I don't think will help them. Just a constant reminder that they're out of range after they hit, the auto attack. I think.
I mean, from what I had seen of the UI, it looks like it looks similar to the old Paragon UI from what I've seen of older videos, which I think that's cool. But there's already so much on screen with the abilities at the bottom, the passives there, your health bar, your mana bar, the items, your stats, bar, timer, minimap. Well, some words appearing on the middle of the screen might go unnoticed. Yeah, it's helpful to new players, but there's already so much going on. They might just not notice that, or they might like, why am I not hitting? Maybe I should get closer.
All right, fine. You
Who
know what?
knows?
I will agree to disagree, I guess, because they're saying that there's people who rage quit. I guess Tyler one played Paragon back in the day and couldn't figure out where his autos were going, and so he'd stop
Oh.
playing. And so, okay, that's fair. I mean, but you have hit markers, you have a range indicator on the ground. I don't know. Maybe you know what? Fine, give it to the new player. Is it toggleable? Can I turn it
That's
off?
my question. Can I
There
turn
you
it
go.
off?
There you go. If I can turn it off, I have no complaints. Actually, that's fine. Just give me the option to turn it off because I think it would drive me nuts. Because I have ADHD, so I can't sit in lane and just stand there. I'm always pressing buttons. So I'm jumping. I'm auto attacking for no reason. It would drive me nuts if every time it either made a noise or that auto out of range thing popped up. I'd just be like.
I think the only time it should trigger is when you are actively looking at the opponent and trying to hit them. I think that would be a good
Oh,
time for it
maybe.
to show up. Yeah, because if you're just firing your auto and that shows up, yeah, that's not great. If it's just whenever you take an auto shot, like if you're looking at an opponent, that would probably be the best time to
If
do
you
it,
don't-
or actively at a target. So
Ruva's comment. If you don't miss autos, why would it ever show?
true.
I mean,
Real quick, Jelly blast from the past here. Do you guys know about King's Hunt? That is another
Oh,
MOBA I
dude.
thought I was put on to by y'all. I haven't played King's Hunt in a long time. When's the last time you played King's Hunt, Jelly?
It's been quite some time. Their announcements have become fewer and far between.
Yeah. I think that one's slowly dying out. It was fun while it lasted. I
Mhm.
didn't like the slug thing that they added in towards the end, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything about King's Hut in a long while, and I'm sorry for that. But
He would hate StarCraft.
Plus, I'm just not good at it. I can't play StarCraft after watching Korean like tournaments in StarCraft and how fast they're hitting all those like hotkeys or whatever. They're not even looking at as they're moving stuff. They just start moving things on. I can't do it. It's too much. It's too much.
you
All
played
right, so
Warcraft though, right? You did. Have you ever played a rogue and heard not enough energy?
yes,
Sorry, I played
I
rogue.
turned. So the good thing about World of Warcraft is you can get things that turn that stuff off. You can put them. You know what I mean? And I did. I played rogue actually, and it drove me nuts. The not enough energy thing. Well, I think we have other questions that weren't pay to win, as Beard'd like to point out. Do you want to cover those? I did put them in the document for you.
Yeah, let's go ahead and cover those, and then we'll move on to our discussion topic. Let me. I'll just randomly play. I'll just switch over to.
So actually, I'm gonna address Bearded's question real quick while you're doing this. Do you guys think Overprime is racing against Predecessor with their EA release or their early access release? There's an aspect that it feels like they're playing chicken with each other. That it feels like we're waiting for each other. That they can be like, okay, wait, hold, everybody hold. And then the second Predecessor announced something, Overprime's gonna be like, and us, we're also coming out too, and console, and like all it, dude.
Well, you know
There's
what
an
it was.
aspect of it.
Like, you think that they see themselves as direct competition because they're both not out yet, like, and that's they're gonna play off that.
I think they've definitely seen how Fault's continuing to go through their development, and are definitely, for lack of a better way to put it, more worried about each other than they are of Fault in that mix.
I think they're waiting for Ethereal, and I'm basing that on. I don't know if you guys remember the pre-alpha test that we had for Ethereal. Like, they announced them like well in advance, but every single time, like one of them was like, Fault was like, "Hey, free weekend this weekend."
Yes,
God damn it.
seriously.
Then like the next one was like, "Predecessor closed beta test." It's like everybody's just out to get Ethereal.
I actually think Jalea Lenio, that's also a fun name, because Overprime knows Pred is the biggest competition. I actually think, at least, well, if I were Overprime or if I was Pred, I wouldn't see them as competition in the direct sense, because the games are still, from a gameplay stance, they're so different. I don't think that they're going to see each other as direct necessarily competition, although initially, especially, the release of both of them will probably have players being siphoned one way or the other. But the people who are going to enjoy Overprime more are not going to necessarily be leaving to go and play Pred, and vice versa. Pred is going to keep the Pred players in Overprime. And I actually think, just by us all three sitting here, we're going to probably play between the two of them, if I'm guessing right. Like, if Pred actually feels good to play as more like strategic, super like Giga Brain type, MOBA style, but it's still super fun to play, I'm gonna play Predecessor. If I want to play something that's a lot more fast paced and kind of ridiculous and like really just get to flex on people, I'm probably gonna play Overprime. And I don't have a problem going back and forth between the two if they're both fun. You know what I mean? Like, I think, and they both have ambitions and capabilities of becoming esports. Like, if they, again, can get to the player base that's large enough to support them. But I think that they both can. I actually think, and this might be crazy, there's a world where they kind of like become one big happy family. And that would be wild, but I think it could be. Just saying.
I think the biggest thing is the initial release, right? Long term, it won't matter which one releases first, but initially, there will be a major difference, and there will be a siphoning of players for whichever releases second, right? Even however minuscule. And if that resets, fine. If it doesn't reset, that's the problem. But long-term matters less. It's going to be that initial release to be able to say we had 50,000 players on our initial release versus 2 weeks later when Predecessor released, we only had 5. Like, it's determining that initial scale for both of them.
Damn, only 5 players for Predecessor. That's a shame.
And I disagree that people they're fighting over Paragon players, to be honest. I think either Paragon players are just going to be happy to play one of the games, or they're no longer interested anyway. Both of these games need to be focused on new players, and that's really where they're going to be able to survive. Go ahead.
Predecessor is fighting for Paragon players. Overprime is not.
Yeah, maybe if that's the
Well, I
because
think
Overprime's
Predecessor
shown us the
has.
numbers. Yeah, exactly. That's Predecessor's community right now, whereas it is not Overprime's community. That's the core difference. Is it matters less to Overprime what the Paragon people do because they've got their whole Eastern audience that doesn't care.
True.
Right? But Predecessor is Paragon, right? That community, they're one to one almost for a lot of those people.
Which can
So
be
it
helpful
makes
or
a
hurt
big
them,
difference
right?
for
Yeah.
them.
And a lot of
100%.
people, I don't want to shit on Fault, but there's a lot of people playing Fault right now because they can't play Predecessor. Like
Mhm.
they want a Paragon remake, they want it to be Predecessor, but right now the only thing out there available to play every day is Fault. So they're kind of playing Fault. I don't think that's fair to Fault. I think Fault does have its fans that are more into Fault than they would be Predecessor, and I think Fault deserves that. But we've seen what happens when Predecessor has a closed beta test. Like everybody goes over and plays Predecessor, right? It's like,
And then that's the thing. Obviously, best case scenario, all 4 of the games we've talked about today survive in their own accords. Fault players get Fault, Pred gets Pred, Overprime gets Overprime. Ethereal will be amazing later. And people will shift in between. And I think that'd be awesome because I don't, there are some people, but I think a majority of the players are like, if they want this game, that's what they're going to get. If nobody's asking for other games to fail. I mean, obviously there are, but like a majority of the people aren't like actively saying, "I hope this game fails." But like all 3 should survive. Will they? Yeah, it's kind of up in the air. But optimally, all 3 should be able to live in their own sort of. It's going to be like living in a neighborhood. Each person gets their own house. Though they might share the same cul-de-sac, who knows?
I think using that same analogy, rent or mortgages are too high for all 3. There's not enough for them all to survive. I think that 2 can maybe survive. I think, to be honest, this is the brutal truth, is that all 3 have a very hard uphill battle to surviving. The space that they're trying to occupy is one that is already, even from the big guys, like if you look at League of Legends and Dota, are seeing numbers decrease. The MOBA genre as itself is starting to lose numbers. So the third person MOBA space is dominated right now by one game, and that's Smite, and they get around 15 to 20,000 concurrent players each day. If any of these parazombies want to survive, they have to get to as close to that number or exceeding it as possible. There's not been anything that showcases that any of these 3 can reach that big of an audience yet. Now, maybe they can, but not the playtest did not bring in tens and thousands of players. They brought in thousands, but not tens of thousands, and definitely not concurrently. It's not like everybody who started playing that game was so blown away that they played it for the entirety of the playtest. So that's that's just me being brutally honest. I want to see these games survive because I like them. I've always wanted, and that's how I became, involved in this project in the first place, is I've wanted to see a third person MOBA that's not Smite be better, because I liked Paragon. I thought Paragon was super cool in theory. The game execution was sometimes not always great, but that's the same thing with these ones. And so that uphill battle is going to be what they have to challenge in the first place to be able to survive at all.
I think it's fair to point out that a lot of Paragon success and definitely a lot of Smite success is console. The reason for that success is that they were available on console. So if any of the people say it all the time that it's a race to console, it's not really a race to EA, it's a race to console. Who can get on console first? And I think that's kind of true.
Yeah, when it comes to
no, go ahead, Dapper.
Okay, yeah. When it comes to concurrent viewer or players and figuring out, player base, it's very difficult when it comes to testing, because I don't remember where I heard this from, but like the idea that tests will probably have higher bloated numbers is because they're limited time. Everyone's gonna rush to go play that. Everyone's gonna go do that. Because it's only up for so long. So it's going to be hard to judge actual numbers when it comes to playing until they come out and we can actually just straight up get those numbers. Because as Viking mentioned, there's such a high competition in terms of like you need to estimate and get around this, but I think that shouldn't be too much of an issue because Smite is a MOBA that has a third-person camera and lets you use WASD. Other than that, I've seen it as like a traditional MOBA where it's
Right.
it's its own thing. While from what I've seen of Predecessor, Fault, and even Overprime, they have such different playstyles than Smite ever really would have from what I've played either. So I think this is a good, sort of that next generation of MOBA thing coming out. Because, a lot of people come from shooter backgrounds these days.
Sure.
So, these are games that potentially reward that sort of aggressive play, that reward that, hitting your shots, that reward all of those things. So I think that there's a high chance that this will bring in a new wave of MOBA players. Because yes, the MOBA genre is falling, but that's also because we haven't gotten anything new since League or Smite, really. Like, you don't really hear about other MOBAs that have come out in between then. And if so, they were small projects, So
Heroes,
this is
Heroes
yeah.
of the Storm.
I
Well,
forgot that was a game.
Well, to be honest, like I mean, we've talked about this before on FTM. Like HOTS had the biggest gaming company, basically, or one of the biggest game backing it, trying to get into this space in the MOBA space, and struggled to do so. Like it had a huge influx of people initially, but to retain those players and keep it active, obviously, it didn't work. It couldn't even keep an esports, moving because it just wasn't entertaining for people to watch consistently. So I think that's why I mean, again, just being brutally honest, I think it's going to be a very, very high mountain you maybe to climb in the first place for any of these three games. Now, that's also guessing that it's going to be immediate success. Like that over time, maybe they make it work, but it is going to prove difficult. Now, maybe they have a different measurement of success, and maybe esports and all that other stuff is just like a cool ambition. Maybe hitting a 5 to 10,000 concurrent player base is more than okay for them, and that's enough to support their ecosystem and continue making a game that they're passionate about. But when you're looking at like the investment that Predecessor has gotten, the investment that Overprime has gotten, I don't think that those companies are looking for 5 to 10,000 concurrent players. I think they're looking for big number of players. So
fun fact, during Overprime CBT2, 15,575 concurrent viewers.
Players throughout the whole thing?
Yes,
no, that was day one. That was day one.
Was that day one?
Yeah,
that was day one. That's the
and
peak.
then it
They had
fell
the
off.
Peak of 15,501.
And then it fell off pretty hard, right?
It fell off. I think it was to about 9,000 by the end.
Oh, okay. Well.
So,
but a lot of people did try it. 356,000 people tried it.
Yeah, and again, that's not saying that I didn't. I mean, I loved playing Overprime. First of all, I played it the whole time that it was up. I played it almost every single day. It was super fun. I'm just saying that it's like to keep the push going. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh about it, but that's just how I'm seeing it. I think the gaming space in general is difficult to crack. And I think they need to really invest in marketing and making sure that they get some, high caliber streamers involved in playing their game and get a lot of eyeballs on it when it comes to early access. Get some shooters, some guys who play third person shooters in playing this game. Get some Tyler ones to play the game again. Do anything to try and get the name out there in front of as many millions of people as you can. Like Hood, for example, was initially flying under the radar. They got some of the biggest streamers on Twitch, like Shroud, Lyric, to play the game, and the game shot up huge, massive numbers. Now, granted, it fell off pretty hard because the game struggled to keep up with the demand that they brought on, but I think that's what you need, and that's the only way, in my opinion, that they're really going to be able to crack into the big numbers. Anyway, we're getting way off subject here, I think.
Well, we didn't even crack into the topic for the night, which is it kind of applies to the stuff that we've been saying though, which is
true.
They've all the games have had different release strategies, and they all have different popularities right now. Right now, I think Predecessor is by far the most popular and anticipated game in North America, EU, whereas Overprime is by far the most anticipated game in Asia. I think Fault falls well below both of them right now as far as interest, even though the game's out. We won't know once all the games are out, how that's gonna pan out. But just sheer popularity, being realistic, Fault is way less popular than either Predecessor or Overprime. And then Ethereal, I think not a lot of people know about Ethereal, but Ethereal fans are hardcore, but I don't think it's as popular yet, but because they just don't, they're not near the others as far as coming out yet. So
Already in that camp, so definitely hardcore.
but
that's so
I think
funny,
a
'cause
lot of it has to do with the release strategies too. So
Sure.
with Predecessor, you had their, was it 2019? They had that in March 2019 they had their very first alpha, and it sucked. It was bad. And then they just went silent for like a fucking entire year. Like they didn't really interact with the community at all. But after that year, they came back with a fan-fucking-tastic product, and it blew everybody's socks off. Overprime, on the other hand, you had Overthrow, which Rocket Mania was kind of doing, which is sort of Overprime, but not really. But then they transitioned into Overprime, and they had the peer-to-peer servers for the game, and then they had two different maps, and they had three maps. They had one lane 3v3 ARAM map, and then they had a monolith and a legacy map, and they had all these heroes, and they had all this going for them. But the game itself was fairly hard to download, so it was cool that they had a free game out before everybody else, but it kind of left a bad taste in people's mouths because it was hard for them to download and install, and it was hard for them to even play after they downloaded and installed whenever they they kind of went back and forth with having actual servers. And then you have Fault that went pretty much straight into early access, and we've been able to play and watch the development, like the stuff that Predecessor did behind the scenes. We've been able to watch that with Fault, but that might be a reason that they haven't come as far as they have, and it might be a reason for currently why they're not as popular, because people got a bad taste in their mouth from seeing the poor sides of Fault, and they haven't went back to check up on to see how much it's come along. And then Ethereal has had not a lot of news. They've had a couple of beta tests, and I don't know how that's going to affect Ethereal going forward, because a lot of people looked at those tests and they were like, well, this game is just not near finished, while other ones looked at it and were like, holy shit, this game has a lot of potential. So it's kind of split right there if it was a good thing for them to do those beta tests or not. So I don't know. It's just interesting that they've all had such a different strategy.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things that is currently functioning to Ethereal's benefit, and Dapper, I'm going to use you as the prime example here, because this was my thought going in, and you kind of reassured me on it, is that when you talk to players about what Ethereal is, some of the potential of Ethereal, right? They look like Dapper did when we talked about it on this show, right? Like that kind of like, what? Like, you can do what? Like, what do you mean that's a thing you can do, right? And so while I would agree with you that Ethereal is the lowest on the popularity poll of these four games, I don't think that's to Ethereal's detriment in the current state of progress that Ethereal's in, right? That's where I think a lot of these games got mixed up. And I think Core is a prime example of that. I think early Predecessor, before they went silent and they had their first test, is an example of that, right? That like having the right audience and the right expectations for where you're at in development is a huge, huge, huge deal. Right? That then if those concepts for Ethereal come to fruition and can be fully fleshed out, then when the players do learn about it, they say, yes, you can do that. Yes, you can. Here's how you play. Right? Like it's that chain reaction of bing, bang, boom, right into the game, instead of, and being such an extreme of the 3D MOBA market as well, I think is one of those things that's very different comparatively to the Paragon successors.
I want to echo. I agree with the Ethereal comment, because I do think that when people hear or see some of the stuff that's coming out from Ethereal, it's easy to get excited about the potential of it, right? And so while it is a bit more of like a slow burn at this point, just because really most dev teams, and we've talked about this before, in Ethereal's place probably wouldn't even be putting out content about their game yet. But because Ethereal is trying to slowly but surely generate, people who might be interested in this and maybe even get more involved with the community and all that fun stuff, they're putting stuff out, which I think is great. I love communication from devs that I'm excited to see, and I think that kind of ties into kind of what Ruba was asking about the Iggy release. He said, does it not make more sense that Iggy was due to release at the same time as 1UP, but was delayed, which is why the promo material didn't happen? And I think that this goes along with a lot of anything else that's in development. If the player base knows that something is there or something, and it can't come out for whatever reason, right? Using Iggy, for example. Hey, do you know what? We play tested Iggy. Stuff was breaking when we really wanted to release him as part of 1UP because the movie was coming out, and we know you guys are really excited about it, but he's not quite ready, and we want to give you a finished product. Okay. Communication received. It's a bummer. Sorry. Same thing with Richter. Richter getting pulled out and almost nothing told about why. Just, he's pulled. Nope. You can't play him. Why? What's going on? Oh, well, his hook is actually breaking the game for whatever reason after the last patch, and we can't figure out why yet. So we're having to, look into code or whatever. Oh, okay, cool. That makes sense. But so to me, that's the big stuff with any of these things as far as like release or bungling releases or doing anything like, as these games come out. Giving the player base that you're trying to get excited about your game more information that's in a smart way, right? You don't necessarily need to be full doors open, give them all of the information, but you need people being, and most players or gamers are going to understand that, oh, there's a bug. Okay, well, yeah, that makes sense as to why you would pull the champion or why you delayed the release or whatever. It's fine. Like, just be upfront, honest, I guess, with the people. And this is more towards Fault than it is towards the other guys, because the other guys aren't even released yet, so they can kind of be a little bit more mysterious if they want to. Fault's out, as far as we're concerned, right? They're in early access technically, but they're basically an out game. You can download it right now, play the game. They should be way more leading the charge as far as communication with their players, and I feel like they dropped the ball on that. Go ahead.
To backpack off that, that's something that was definitely in my mind as we were talking about these release strategies, and in the history of how the community has received each of these games. I think what causes this disconnect is all three of them, and then Ethereal, are based off of Paragon. So with all of them running, around the same pace, all of them planning to enter or already have entered early access this year, people expect all of the progress to be simultaneous, despite the fact that different companies are working at different speeds and have different focuses. But more than that, I think it comes down to each company needing to accurately show at what point of the process they're in. Because just because a game is playable, that doesn't mean it's finished. Just because a game was in a beta, that doesn't mean they're planning to release it soon. And that's the thing, is accurately representing and telling your community, your players, here's where we are in the process. This is what we are letting you try for now. So by saying we're in a beta test, some people are like, oh, you must be getting close if you're in a beta already. Or if you're in an alpha, okay, we're pretty far away. So if you can accurately represent where you are in the process of developing a game, that makes the marketing better in that regard. Because with Predecessor and Overprime, both of them had a beta or a test weekend earlier this year, correct? I believe Predecessor did? Yeah. So by doing that, both of them showed we are getting close to the end of development, going into early access or full release or whatever. So by having that and then having that transparency, people are really excited for that sort of thing, because we've been told, and the way it's been communicated is that they're close to that release. And I think that's what's going to make or break any of these games, is accurately depicting where they are in this process. If Predecessor comes out and says, okay, we're nearly done with a game, but when it comes out, it's buggy, it's got mistakes, and this is what's considered near completion. Not saying this is at all, this is just an example. If they say this is near completion, but it's buggy, characters don't work, some of the issues come out, items are busted, some characters are overpowered, some are underpowered, then that's going to cause a bad taste if you say this is close to release and it's just not what they wanted. So if you're able to accurately represent what you're selling to your people, selling a free game, whatever, that's going to make or break, is being accurate with what you are trying to give the community.
On also the flip side, though, is there can be such a thing as too much transparency, and I think that has been actually proven by the popularity of the games right now and their strategies for release. Because when Preds when Predecessor's very first alpha came out, Core was still around, and everybody was hyped up for Pred. Then that alpha dropped, and it sucked. It was not great, but it was just the very initial, very first steps of their development process. And and people just didn't understand that. They just couldn't get it through their heads that this is a very early pre-alpha version of the game. So they went flocking right back to Core, and then Core boned up there, just didn't even do
Core things
in alpha. And everybody kind of went back to Pred, but Pred just wasn't there. And that's when Fault kind of came in, swooped in, and filled that void. But and then with Overprime too, their initial Soul Leave release pre-Netmarble was pretty janky. Like, there was a lot of janky shit going on in Overprime when it was just peer-to-peer, and then they had servers and all that. The one lane 3v3 was fun, but like shots would come from behind you. The animations just weren't there. Like, Murdoch would lean all the way over here whenever you tried to turn, and like there was a lot of weird stuff going on with the game. So people could see, even they didn't seem to understand that it was in a work in progress. They could see what it looked like, and they would just shit on it, and they would just not come back to it. But then they got the Netmarble, and they just went silent. They shut down their servers. They stopped supporting that version of Overprime. They went completely silent for a while, and then they came back with like an amazing product that kind of blew everybody away. So, and I think that's kind of the problem with Fault. With Fault, everybody has seen the struggles, which it sounds like such a great idea to let the community see your struggles as you develop the game. But unfortunately, the community doesn't seem to understand that it is a struggle and that things are going to improve. They just look at what they are right now and then just kind of make a judgment based on that, which I think is pretty smart of Ethereal for not doing another CBT, because I think right now it would do more harm than good.
I think it goes back to calling like the titles of it, right? So like too many, I think so the game devs and people who are really familiar with those types of things will, understand what alpha, beta, and then early access means. But with the, I guess, meta, especially on Steam, of early access games basically going into early access before they become full release games, you know what I mean? It like kind of watered down all those terms from a community perspective. Like, some games will stay in early access for years and years and years, and you're just like, okay, so is this really still early access, or did you just take my money? Like, or is this just like banners that way you can have excuses for why your game is buggy and fucks up all the time? Like, and so I think that's where it struggles. Like, when you mentioned like Fault, for example, and them, us as a community kind of getting to go along with them, they keep saying, well, it's in early access. It's in early access. I'm like, okay, yeah, it is in early access, but you took my money. And now, you're taking my time because I'm putting time into your game, and those things I don't get back. And if I don't feel like you're valuing my time and my money, then you're not of value to me, and I'm not going to continue to invest either of those things into you. And I think having a really forward community manager or somebody who's in charge of making sure that the people who are investing, again, their time and their money, or a combination of the two, into your early access or into your beta or into your, and I thought, to me, Overprime with the last CBT did a fantastic job with that. They came out afterwards and were hyping up how much data that the people provided and how much all the surveys that they collected and like that, and they released it all and said like, look, we not only read it, we paid attention to it. Here's all the information we took from it. Here's the Trello going over some of those things. That's communication that says like, we're ready to release a game that's still going to be worked on, and we go into, when they say they're going into early access, I'm going to trust what that term means. You know what I mean? So that's kind of plays on it. I think when we talk about release strategies, when you say you're going into early access, okay, well, is this real early access, or is this just a term so that way you can get away with, bugs, or what does it really mean, and how much communication are we going to get from it? Does that make sense? I hope I explained that well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that was something I was going to say as well, is like the way marketing for gaming these days has come. As you mentioned, early access is more, we want to release our game for you guys because the community wants it, but we're not ready to call it a finished product yet. And eventually, as you mentioned as well, it just kind of stays that way for sometimes way too long. So when it comes to Overprime, at least the way I hope they do it is they call it early access until all of the Paragon characters got released, or all the ones that they're wanting, and then that's considered full release when they have their full roster of the original characters. Then when they start putting their own characters out there, that's post-release content. Yeah, that's my hope for Paragon or Overprime at least.
With that being said, do you guys think that they should do early access while also still putting it onto console? Because console early access tends to really struggle to get approved. Like going into early access on Steam is like almost, it doesn't take anything really, right? But to get early access permission on like, Xbox or PlayStation is, from what I understand, super difficult. And I think Ruba mentioned it earlier in chat. I don't have it saved, but something along those same things, is that it's really, really difficult to get in front of those stores when you're going in, not having a full release product. I don't know much about it. Do you guys have any insights or thoughts on that aspect? Because I know that's big for all these projects.
It's definitely possible Paragon did it, right? Because Paragon was on console and Paragon never technically full released. And so it's
was PlayStation 3 or 4?
That was 3.
What?
Was
4.
it?
No, it was 4. It was 4.
Early
right.
4 then. Early 4 then.
Yeah, very early 4.
Okay, that's forever ago, Jelly.
Still, it shows that there's the precedent there, and especially precedent if you're a large enough company, right? Epic Games, being who they were, may have had more pull than an indie developer can. So Netmarble, by association, may have more pull than a Fault would necessarily, or maybe one of the investors for Overprime has more pull that they can get those things done in a more expedient time frame than just full release or bust.
Rupa brings up a good point. Epic also knew what performance was needed for PS4. This is Netmarble's first PC foray into the PC gaming, and I think the first foray into console gaming. They've been mainly a mobile gaming company so far, so I think that may be somewhat applicable. Yeah, they've got a fuck ton of mobile games. But
I mean, that definitely goes into the idea of like which one comes to console first is gonna definitely get ahead, because then that's another 2 markets on top of PC you get to sell and advertise to. And any of them entering console would definitely benefit. Maybe not like 100% benefit, but going into early access, waiting until full release to put it on console would not be a great thing, because as we've already mentioned, we don't know how long these early access are gonna last.
Yeah.
So if Pred and Overprime enter early access, and then 3 years later when they go into full release, that's when console gets it, everyone that's on console might have felt lied to, in all honesty. Because when you hear a game's coming to a console, and then it's released on PC for like years before you, it just feels like a slap in the face, to say the least. So I imagine they'll get to console, I'm gonna be honest, probably either early to summer next year. Like early next year to summer to next year.
Well, I was gonna say Paragon or Overprime, and I think Predecessor both are. Well, Overprime has mentioned that theirs is early access is going to include a console release, right? And I think Predecessor.
No.
I thought they did.
They changed their FAQ. It's not going to be along with EA, but it should be soon after EA.
Oh, soon after doesn't mean
that's
anything.
what I remember.
That's a weird.
Yeah, that doesn't really mean much, but.
Okay, well, so that means that for both of them, then that it might not matter, because I know they all want to get on console. I do think that the console aspect of the game will help. I don't know if it's going to be the make or break for the game's success necessarily. I think that a lot of people hype up getting on console as like the thing that's going to really make the games huge. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think that's. I don't know. I would have to see numbers from like other games that are like for Smite or anything like that are successful via PC, as well as being just as successful, if not more successful, on console. Because I know that like for Overwatch, for example, Overwatch had a good player base that played on console, but was not nearly as like consistent as their PC audience. So people would play on console, but they didn't play as consistently as they would play almost lots of other games. They're way more quote unquote casual about it when they played Overprime. But the PC players of Overprime, or I'm sorry, of Overwatch, played significantly more and way higher competitive and were way more engaged with the game as a whole. So I personally don't think that console's the make or break for any of these guys. I think that they could probably hold off and make sure that it's done correctly, but there are a lot of people who are waiting for these games to come to console, and I know that's a big focus for those players, but
Yeah, and I wasn't saying make or break. I was just saying like,
yeah,
whichever one does it earlier will have a faster boost to their reputation. Hopefully, again, if they do it correctly, that's the big thing.
Yep.
If it's done correctly, that's
everything.
Well, yeah. That's always the underlying statement to all of these. But whichever one does it earlier, or if they do it around the same time, they'll definitely get a good boost in their reputation for that. But
Sure.
Well, let's start wrapping things up. Let's hit those questions that you wrote down for us, Viking.
Oh, we've already gone through them. Yeah, I've been peppering. Yeah, I've been peppering them in on you.
We're,
Yeah.
we're almost like we're almost at 2 hours. Let's go ahead and start closing out with some closing comments and plugs. Dapper Dice, you wanna?
hello again. My name is Dapper Dice. I have going to be putting a lot of content out for Overprime, and that's going to be my focus when that releases. I do a lot of sort of off meta stuff. So if you want to see perfect best builds, you're probably not going to find it at my channel. But that's where I'm going to be focusing most of my time is Overprime when that comes out. And I do have a Twitch, but I'm taking a break from that. Again, waiting for Overprime to come out. So that's going to be my content if you want to enjoy that. But on YouTube and on Twitch, it's Dapper Dice both ways. So
And I'll have those links in the video description eventually. I'll put them in right after this, and then once it uploads as a video, they'll be there.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Viking.
Yay. Honestly, not much more. I'm obviously stoked to continue talking about these developments. I love that we get people from the dev teams coming in here, so I really appreciate you guys coming in, hearing our critique, hearing our comments on it. Hopefully some of them are valuable and not just us looking like trolls, because I don't think that's the intention. I think we're invested in the success in the games in our own ways. But we do really appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out, and the comments today have been on fire. Really appreciate everybody who's been really active. I really love seeing it. I'm so glad we went to the live format. I know that Mangoose has been struggling with the idea of it for a while, but I'm glad that we finally put it together, and because it's been a lot of fun. And you guys can follow me on Twitter. I put out tweets every so often. And that would be cool. I maybe if I get enough of you guys following me, I can get a blue check mark next to my name. That'd be fun. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got for me.
Jelly?
Yep, Jelly Knees, Twitch and YouTube. I don't know. I'm happy to be here. Yes, Meech, you will see Talos' skills all this week on social media, just like XEL's. Yeah, I'm Ethereal. I'm excited for Ethereal. If you guys don't know what Ethereal is, definitely check it out. Dapper Dice, I'm excited to hear your questions as you explore more into Ethereal. But yeah, that's it for me. What about you, Magoose?
I got nothing. I just appreciate everybody coming out. Chat was popping off. We had plenty of viewers tonight. I really greatly appreciate it. Like Jedi said, this was a big leap for me to actually go to a live format for these shows. But it's been a lot of fun. I've really been enjoying interacting with chat as we go, even though I have to limit it somewhat so that we can actually get through the pacing of the show. But yeah,
pacing on this show?
There's pacing on the show. All right.
Oh, not if I can help it.
Yeah, about 45 minutes of Overprime, 15 minutes of the other two. Ethereal gets sprinkled in somewhere, and then we just meme and answer questions the rest of the time. That's what I've noticed from past releases.
Well, it depends on who has the most news, really. Like,
and there's a reason Overprime has the longest one, because they're the only one putting out anything right now.
But yeah, I appreciate you guys. If you're watching this live, I appreciate if you're watching the video that YouTube automatically uploads afterwards. But and if you have any questions that you want to be answered on the next episode, just put them in the comments. And I do keep a spreadsheet, or not a spreadsheet, but a Google Doc where we have everything planned out for the show, and I'll just put those questions that you have on that sheet so that we can hit them up next week. So I don't want people in the comments to feel left out. What are you pointing at, Jedi?
Just one more comment. If you want to be the next Dapper Dice, to come in here and hang out with us a little bit, like, just shoot a message to one of the three of us, or most likely Mangoose, because he's the one who puts most of this together. But let us know.
For now.
Yeah, for now. But yeah, no, honestly, we like having people on here, and if it's a really packed show, then I'll probably be the one that steps out of the show, so that way we can have someone come in. But it is always fun to get like Dapper being here and get his insights, especially since he's like almost in the middle between even me and these two guys. Because normally I'm the one who's like on the outside looking in. I wasn't a hardcore Paragon player. I didn't play a lot of these other games that much. So having Dapper come in is basically just finding this stuff out like 6, 7, 8 months ago or whatever. That's to me, that's just mind-boggling. That's like,
yeah.
like I not only am I just finding MOBAs for the first time, but I'm finding Parazombie MOBAs and I'm loving it. And I'm like, you're diving head in. I think it's so cool, dude. That's super, super neat.
I get comments all the time
I
on
love
videos
that.
saying, "Wait, I thought they canceled this game," and then I have to like go to the explanation of this isn't Paragon, this is Fault, or this is
Yep.
Pred, or this is OP. And like, it's like yeah. Or I get comments like, "I thought they were using the Paragon assets." Like, no, Ethereal was never using the Paragon assets. Like, yeah,
There's a
we
reason.
try to keep people informed, though. We do.
Yeah, there's a reason this sort of panel of people here is called For the Minions and not Parazombies, because it covers MOBAs. It's just those are the three that this one focuses
in the
on.
past we have covered Project Stamina, we have covered King's Hunt. It's not limited to these 4 games, but these is kind of the 4 that we're focused on right now and has the most going on. But yeah, I think that's going to about close it out. Again, appreciate everybody coming out. Yeah, I think that's going to be it. This is the For the Minions crew signing off. You guys have a good one.
Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Our favorite
Hit the button,
out-of-pocket
Mangoose.
Germany
Hit the
and
button.
Incest Jokes podcast stream. Love